Hi, this is Chief Education Officer Bill Olson. I want to welcome you to another Merrimack School District update. I have a very special guest with me today, Rich Zampieri, who has been a longtime assistant principal at Merrimack High School. Rich is retiring at the end of this year after a long and very distinguished career. And so I asked Rich to be on the program a couple of weeks ago, and fortunately he agreed to be on the program. And so I'd like you to get to know a little bit about Rich, what he's done in his career, the excellent services he's provided to students and families and staff in Merrimack. And so, Rich, with that, welcome. And first of all, I want to congratulate you on your retirement and a very long and distinguished career.
Well, thank you for the kind words, Bill. I appreciate having a chance to sort of talk about my wonderful time in Merrimack. I've been at the high school for 24 years, half my adult life, as I like to say. It's been an amazing run. I'm going to miss it terribly. It was not an easy decision to decide to retire. I feel like in some ways I could have kept going, but I got other things I want to do. I don't know them yet, but I do know I want to do them. And it's just been a tremendous honor to work for the students and families of Merrimack. And I've always felt supported by the staff and by the administration, and more importantly by the people of the community of Merrimack.
Well, I will say to you, now this is only my fourth year in Merrimack, my 55th year overall, and in those 4 years it's been an absolute pleasure working with you.
Thank you.
Let me ask you, in terms of the beginning of your career, when did you initially realize that education is what you wanted to do, and this is where your passion has resided?
Well, sometimes, and I don't say this often maybe, I've been in education my whole life. My mom was a teacher, my grandmother was a teacher, uncles were teachers, and I married an educator. So I don't feel like I've ever been away from it. But to be more specific, when I was in high school, I was talking with my business teacher, and I said, I want to be a teacher. I want to be a coach. I want to teach history. And Mr. Welch looked at me and said, no, you don't. He says, your mother probably makes about $7,000 a year, and that's no way to run a family or to have a career. So you may want to think about doing something else. So I ended up going to business school after I got out of high school. But I think that passion never left. So eventually I decided to dabble and sub a little bit and be a para, and eventually got my teaching certification, and then eventually my administration certification, and got back into this, which has been a wonderful career for me.
So with all of your relatives and acquaintances who were teachers, you really had no choice.
Right, yeah, it's destiny.
It sounds like, yeah, it's interesting what you say about the starting salary, because I can remember back in the early 70s, early to mid 70s, and I was fortunate enough to be appointed as an administrator in Lowell, in the Lowell Public Schools. And I will never forget the night that the school committee appointed me, and I went home my wife and I had just recently been married, to tell her that I was going to make $11,000 a year. And it was almost as if we were all set for the rest of our lives.
Yeah.
And little did we know how things would change in terms of pricing as we went forward through history over the last 40, 50 years. You've been in the profession for many years. So tell me where you started, what you were doing, because I noticed also that you got a variety of different experiences, whether it was coaching or alternative education. So give us a little bit of background in terms of where you started and some of the jobs that you've had.
So when I decided to get back and get into education as a career, I didn't know exactly what field or what area per se. So I subbed in various schools in the area, kind of commuted, just got a taste. Did I want to be at middle school, high school? Did I want to be in social studies, or did I want to teach special education? And so I did that for a little bit. Then I got a job here actually in Merrimack as a para at the old Brentwood School. and that was a contained program for EH students. There was a consortium, so we had kids coming from a lot of area towns.
That was the red building.
It was
on-
the red
on
building that no
McGowan.
longer is now a parking lot.
yeah.
Correct, yes. So I was in charge of the timeout room for that year and a half. And then my wife got a job over in the Monadnock region, so we moved over there. And I was a para at a self-contained sort of EH program at the middle school for transitioning 7th and 8th graders coming into this cooperative building. And I did that for a year. And then I had an opportunity to go do my student teaching / be a para at Conval High School in a newly designed self-contained program for EH kids that had been brought back into the district. And I started out as a para, but the teacher soon left for various reasons. And so I was sort of like elevated to the lead teacher. And then I was able to stay there. And they, kind of hired me permanently for the next 3 years. And then a former administrator there had moved over to Merrimack, eventual principal Ken Johnson. And so he mentioned that there might be growing from 2 assistant principals. Merrimack at that point was really growing, and the high school just put on an addition. And so there were going to be they needed a 3rd assistant principal. So after a lot of interviews, I was chosen to be the 3rd assistant principal, and the rest is sort of history. That was 01.
Rich, sometimes I've talked on the program about we all can remember very quickly and very vividly a favorite teacher or teachers that we have had in life and the impact that they had on us.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to ask you that question.
Sure.
Can you give me the name of a favorite teacher that you had?
Absolutely, because one night I was able to give the speech for the National Honor Society, and so I sort of shared a little bit of this story. The year is 1967. The World Series is held during the day, and I was sitting up in my 4th grade classroom.
Must have been the Yankees and the Braves, probably, or the Yankees and the
No,
Pirates.
it was the Red Sox and the Cardinals.
Oh, that's right, in
yes,
67,
yeah, that's
yes.
right. And so Mrs. Wilkins would let us turn the radio on in the middle of the day, at the end of the school day, if we had behaved, to be able to listen to the Red Sox on the radio. And to take time away from school to let us listen to that as you can see, 50 some odd years later, it still resonates with me. And I always appreciate, teachers who sort of could be flexible and try to reach kids in different ways. And I think it was a good lesson.
Yeah, we all remember those teachers who were real people, who cared about us, who inspired, who motivated us, who encouraged us, who connected with us, and really gave us a feeling that they cared about us and that we weren't just another student in their class. And those are the people that you remember for the rest of your life. I mean, we all, and I'm sure the parents out there watching also, we can remember the teachers who we did not particularly care for. And fortunately, there are just a few in every system or systems across the country. But it's amazing what an impact a great teacher has on the life, not only at the time you're in school, but the remainder of your life. We've also had great mentors in our lives. When we started to become employed in various capacities, who would you name as a great mentor or mentors in your life?
Well, I've had, as I mentioned, worked in a couple different schools. The one that was sort of a thread, as I mentioned earlier, was Principal Ken Johnson. At the time, he was an assistant principal at Conval, and then moved over to Merrimack. And then he told me about the position here. And when I came over, he was an assistant principal as well, but soon got elevated. So he certainly helped me sort of navigate the do's and don'ts of an administrator, because I had only had a few short years as a teacher and had not been an administrator before arriving at. So both he and Debbie Wolfon, the other assistant principal, were always generous with their time and answered my questions about what should I do in this situation or what should I do about that situation. Although they were busy as well, they certainly shared their insights on how Merrimack approached things, as well as just like the do's and don'ts of administration in that sense.
You know, it's always important to have had a great mentor, and I can remember if I were asked that same question, I would mention the name of Dr. Henry Mraz, who at the time was the superintendent of schools in Lowell. And I remember that Dr. Mraz had enough confidence in me at a very, very young age to bring my name to the school board, to be school committee in Massachusetts, to be appointed as the assistant superintendent for finance and administration in the school district. And I remember Henry saying, I know you don't have a lot of experience in public education, because I was very young at the time, but he said, I have a lot of confidence in you. And he said, we'll work together, we'll talk frequently. And he said, my advice to you is you're either going to sink or you're going to swim, and you better swim. And then the
Good
job.
advice.
And I said, Dr. Mraz, I won't let you down. I will make sure that, I keep swimming. And but I've always remembered him because he was wonderful to me. He would come in, and if he didn't agree with something I did, he would talk with me politely and professionally and say, here's how I think you should have handled this particular situation. And I always appreciated that, always respected that, and learned a lot from him. And he always used to say to me also, Rich, that whether you're praising a person or disciplining a person in your office, you always allow them to leave your office with a great sense of personal worth and dignity. And I know that's what we've both tried to do as we've gone through our careers. It's, people come to work trying to do, for the most part, trying to do the right thing. Every so often, we need to make a correction, but we have to show a person that we value them. I think that's very important. In your career, you referenced working in alternative programming. Tell me a little bit about where you did that and what that looked like.
The 1 year at the middle school in Monadnock was more just helping students transition into, they've been from small little towns into a larger school in a cooperative school district. So it was more just being on the spot and helping them. When I transitioned the next year to the new program at Conval, we were fortunate to have a fully informed program. It had a social worker, it had a para, it had a lead teacher, and a psychiatrist. So that we sort of had one-stop shopping for the students who had been brought in out of district, and provided a lot of services, not just the academic instruction. And so we were sort of like trying to treat the whole child and individually as opposed to a collective. Everyone was going to do the same thing. As a lead teacher, I had 17 preps because I had like 8 students, but they were all like grades 9 to 12, and they all had different needs. Yeah. So I was like Jack in the Box sometimes, running around teaching a lot of different things, more quantity than quality perhaps at times, but you're just trying to do your best with integrating these students back into the mainstream in that sense. But the nice thing about that program that I remembered was that we had done some grant work, and so on Fridays it was a therapeutic day, so that I got to come to school not dressed in my shirt and tie, but I came dressed to go outdoors and do things. So we would go rock climbing, we would go skiing, we would go snowshoeing, we would go just outdoors doing things, hikes, whatever it was, to just get together as a small group and a bond as a class and do some fun things and learn some things on how to just have fun in that sense, and learn how to navigate life and sometimes even do things you may not wanted to do, and sort of challenge yourself in that sense. And we had a great partner. EMS at the time was across the street, and they were very generous with donating, because some of these kids didn't have anything. So whether it was ski parkers or boots or mittens or backpacks, a lot of great donations, working with the community. They were a great partner and helped our kids be able to do these things.
That's terrific. Partnering to show students that you care about them, care about their well-being, care about them in the present, but also in the future. When I first started here in July of 2021, we had just hired Principal Steve Clare, because we had no principal at that time. And one of the things that, I talked with all of you about during my first year here is, did we have an alternative program for students? And if we didn't, what we were going to do something about it. And all of you worked very hard to put what I think is a great program together. We in this profession for years and years and years, it always seemed to be one size fits all, and here it is to our students. And if you're able to do the work in conformance with the program, that's fine. If you weren't, well, we'll help you to the greatest extent possible. But there was no real differentiation for a number of years in a number of districts. Now you had that in some of your other districts where you just stated you worked. So we all worked hard to put together an alternative ed program that Harley Hall has run for the last couple of years with the support of you and Principal Clare and Assistant Principal Hanlon and our staff. And it's been extraordinarily successful. I mean, we've had probably over the last 2 years alone about 25 students who have received a diploma who otherwise would not have.
Right.
And, we learned that for some students, 5.5 hours a day at the high school level of, and I won't say all the time, a lecture format, because there are lots of lively activities going on in the classrooms, but that's not their thing, and doesn't really bring about relevance to them of their learning to real life. And so what Harley has designed with your support and that of Steve and Jill and the staff has really been outstanding. I mean, the kids have had, and kids and some young adults, I should say, have had some outstanding opportunities. And I'm going to ask you if you've had any particular observations about what we've all put together in the last couple of years in terms of the alternative program at MHS.
Well, I think you hit on a key point. And one of my, sort of when I look back at my career, I could internally, not even that program, but just the past program for some of our EH kids who may not graduate. And I worked with the staff there and the school to get some kids to graduate that might otherwise not have, and they had the supports. So I have some of their pictures on my wall to this day. But specifically to the adult ed program, there are students that literally dropped out and then came back just to take classes. So that team has done an amazing job, as you said, a couple dozen individuals, young adults, who now have a better chance in life because they've got a diploma that they didn't have 2 years ago, 5 years ago, even 10 years ago. So those efforts, though the numbers may not seem that overwhelming, it's going to make a huge difference for that one person. And then you multiply that by a dozen, and all of a sudden these people have a better outlook on life and have just more opportunities, which is rewarding.
In my former district, we had somewhat of a partnership with Babson College. And Babson is in Wellesley, Mass, and ranked as the top college in the United States for entrepreneurship. And I've talked with Holly in the past, and our new director, Matt O'Brien. Holly is, some of you may or may not know, is leaving Merrimack, very unfortunately. But for him, in a positive note, Holly is now becoming an assistant principal at Wyndham High School, and just hired Matt O'Brien, a teacher at the high school, to take Holly's place in running the alternative program. And I've spoken with Matt about having us meet with some of the officials that I've dealt with in the past, who I know from Babson, to see if they would work with us in terms of establishing in our alternative program maybe some training on how to start your business, how to think innovatively. There was some research done by 3 Harvard researchers who wrote a book, The Innovator's DNA. And there are 5 skills that can be taught to children, to adults, all of us, in terms of how to think more creatively and innovatively. And so I'd like to see if we could develop that partnership with Babson. You know, before we go too long here, I want to ask you, since you and I have been around a long time, what are the changes, Rich, that you've observed in this profession from the time you began to the present time?
Well, I think that the one constant, kids are always kids. But I think they're almost been exposed to things at an earlier age because of access to technology and media. Mm-hmm. So I think the technology is a wonderful thing if it's used correctly. And I think it's helped the school district, it's helped students, it's helped teachers deliver instruction and be a tool. Not the answer, but a tool to help them deliver the content. But I think the downside of technology sometimes is that kids are, I guess, using them not in a way that we would hope sometimes. Yeah. Yeah. And whether it's cyberbullying or being distracted from what the goal of that class is, or even after school when they're supposed to be doing some research and they're doing, looking up not what the assignment is. I think that's been a challenge for parents, for educators. So I think technology is an easy answer, but it has both the pros and the cons. And I think that's been the biggest thing since I've been here. Yeah. We used to have teachers leave their rank books when for the summer to check grades. That's and right. Now everything is in digital form. So I mean, even it's just been 24 years, that was a huge change in practice.
Yeah, and we're being bombarded with information, some of it accurate, some of it not accurate, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, which I think has increased the overall stress level of the American population. When I was growing up, I can remember TV stations. There were only several TV stations. They ended their programming at midnight. You had a test pattern between midnight and 6 a.m. and they came on at 6 o'clock in the morning. And as I said, only several stations. Now you're watching programming or listening to it or on your electronic device all hours of the day and night. And I have to say, I have a bad habit. I'm sure you probably do the same thing. Sometimes you wake up in the middle of the night and grab that cell phone and check your emails or your text messages.
I told a student that story this morning, in fact. I had 3 channels, black and white, and had to fix the rabbit ears. I didn't have a remote. I had to actually stand up and go to the TV to change the channel. And I had 3 choices. So I was sort of out of luck. And they looked at me like I had 3 heads. It was kind of funny. It was fun to tell the story, though.
And if the rabbit ears didn't produce enough, clear picture, you had some tinfoil that you added, you crumpled up and you added to the end of the rabbit.
We laugh, but that's true.
Yeah. Rich, what's in your future?
Well, the hardest thing will be to wake up one day and know that I'm not coming into Merrimack High School. After 24 years, that's a concept I haven't got my head around yet. I'm looking forward to some more time with my family and maybe travel at a time that isn't a school vacation week, but when I want to do it sort of thing, and not be limited by a week or something like that. So I am just looking forward to sort of initially for the summer, just sort of like enjoying the weather and enjoying doing some things with traveling with my son, hopefully, and go from there. And then down the road, I wish I had something all lined up. I know I will be doing something because I just have to be thinking. I can't just sit in a Barker Lounger and just hang out. I mean, it sounds appealing at the moment, but I don't know how long that would last.
Well, I'll tell you from my experience, and I've only known you for 4 years. You are the epitome of a gentleman and a scholar, a person of total integrity, and it has been an absolute pleasure. And I wish you nothing but the greatest of luck and the greatest of health in the future. And thank you for everything you've done for the students of Merrimack.
Bill, thank you for your time. It's been a pleasure. I've enjoyed this immensely. Have a good day.
Thank you, Rich, and thank you for joining Bill Olson. I look forward to seeing you next time.